I'm very pleased to introduce our next reader, our fourth reader this evening, Tegan Jones. Tegan has been writing professionally for the last 5 years. Trained as a journalist, she's published articles about business trends, environmental issues, travel destinations, and many other topics she considers too boring to list. Tegan currently works as a content director at Imagination Publishing, where she dreams of hanging up her business suit and becoming a fiction writer full-time. In pursuit of that dream, she is in progress with her first novel, which she hopes to unveil at this time next year. Please welcome Tegan Jones.
Thank you. So as Bill mentioned, I am working on my first novel, and I am reading an excerpt from it tonight. The book is called The Year of the Rabbit, and in the Chinese zodiac, the Year of the Rabbit signifies a very lucky time. It only comes ever so often, and it basically is a year in which the things that you really focus on and wish for and dream for are supposed to be more likely to come true, especially if you really dream about them on the night of a full moon. So that's kind of a little bit of background, and I guess I'll just let the story do the rest. Like most men in their 20s, Nathan hated his job. Yet, Nathan felt his was a special sort of discontent, the type that meant he was destined for something more. The only problem was, Destiny didn't seem to agree. Destiny seemed to think that a condo and a corporate job was what Nathan's future had in store. Still, despite the pleated khakis that symbolized his impending mediocrity, Nathan refused to submit to his fate. So, every night, on the bus ride home, he analyzed his options and planned his escape. Nathan might have had success in this venture, except that he was generally all thought and no action. Ever since high school, when the threat of adulthood became a pending reality, he'd been in the habit of crafting plans that would save him from the monotony of everyday life. Whether it was winning big at blackjack or just falling off a rich guy's porch, he knew that life would intervene to send him straight to the top. But unfortunately for Nathan, life never came through. So in the end, he went off to college, he took his tests and he passed his classes, he got a degree. Yet, despite the fact that he graduated with honors and got a great job, Nathan never stopped feeling like he had been cheated. And he wore his outrage like a badge of honor, and the scowl constantly twisted across his face. So there Nathan was, scowling and scheming, when Anna boarded the bus. In fact, he was so caught up in a plan to quit his job and become an Alaskan fisherman that he almost didn't see her approach. It was the sound of her that first caught his attention. She crinkled as she walked. The sound, he saw, came from 2 giant bags made of neon candy wrappers that crunched loudly together as she took the seat across the aisle. He watched as she pulled back the hood, exposing ratty strands of thick blonde hair. Their eyes met for a moment. Then Anna looked away, wiping the streams of mascara from under her eyes. Then her hoodie began to vibrate. She sighed and answered the phone. "What?" she asked, clearly annoyed. Then, "No, I didn't get through them all. It started pouring." She rolled her eyes at the caller's response. "Whatever," she said. "I'm coming home." Nathan caught himself wondering if the caller was her boyfriend. He checked the girl's finger. No ring. But before he could pinpoint why Anna had piqued his interest, she pulled the bell and was on the move. She dragged her bright cargo with her, struggling to lug the bulk out of the bus's back doors. Nathan watched as they folded shut behind her and saw one catch the corner of her bag as it closed. The force was just enough to knock a portion of the bag's contents onto the floor. It was only a few glossy postcards, but Nathan's curiosity got the best of him, so he made his way towards the back to take a closer look. In bright blue, lightning-shaped letters, the front of the cards read "Midnight Train." A mass of dark clouds filled the background. Nathan laughed and looked at the back, which listed the name of several DJs. He wasn't surprised that he hadn't heard of any of them. He scanned the flyer for a location, but found only a date, Friday, April 25th, the very next day. He shoved the flyers in his pocket and pulled for his stop. Then he cinched up his hood and stepped into the rain. As a man who worked primarily in numbers, Nathan didn't usually get involved with matters of the heart. Still, he found himself thinking of the tall, saggy girl as he ate his Chinese takeout that night, and the next morning as he ran his reports. Whether he checked the clock for Paris, New York, or LA, he found that the days seemed to move unusually slow. And like most of Nathan's days, it was also a long one. When he reached for his jacket, the clock for Chicago read 9 p.m. Yet, on the bus ride home, he didn't plot to flee the country. He didn't even make a list of things he hated about his day. Instead, he pulled a flyer from his pocket and gave it a closer look. Near the bottom, under the DJ's names, he spotted smaller text he had missed the night before. It said to call Alley Cat Records after 9 p.m. for directions on the night of the show. Nathan looked at his watch. It was 9:15. So he dialed the number, which went straight to voicemail. House music started playing and a man's voice came on the line. "Party people, tonight we're at the rail yard at 43rd and Western. Head north on the tracks and follow the Black Cat. Entry's $25, and remember, no weapons." Click. Nathan mulled over the details in his mind. 43rd and Western, look for a cat, no weapons. Nathan had gone to a few underground shows in college, so he wasn't entirely new to this process. But the info lines before had always given an address, a spot you could physically find on a map. There was no reliance on domesticated animals. Still, Nathan was intrigued, and he knew this would be his only chance to find the tall, pale-skinned girl. So he stopped by his apartment to exchange his button-up for a t-shirt. He opted for a blue one with a snake's head on the front. The back said Cobra Commander. Then, after a quick dinner of last night's leftovers, he got in his car. The flyer said doors opened at 11. It took him about an hour to get to the crossroads, which were far outside of his daily commute. He didn't know the neighborhood, and he had no clue where he was going. So Nathan just parked his car and headed east. After several blocks, however, he started to question his choice. In fact, he was about to turn around and try the other direction when he spotted a railroad junction in the distance. When he finally reached it, he knew he'd come to the right place. Stretching out in front of him, over and under a massive steel bridge, a dozen rail lines had converged. The directions had said to go north, so Nathan turned left. But after about 50 yards, the rails split off in different directions. He looked around, wondering which route to take, when he saw a piece of graffiti on a giant green dumpster. A black cat, like the message had said. It was facing down a smaller trail leading away from the tracks. Nathan took its lead, heading into a dense cluster of trees. As he moved down the quickly darkening path, he began to hear the low rumble of electronic music. As he got closer, the steady thump of the bass was joined by a chirping, repetitive beat. After a moment, the trail began to open up, revealing a storage yard surrounded by a chain metal fence. He walked through the storeyard's gate, which had been cleanly unhinged. Inside the lot, Nathan was met by rows of abandoned semi-trailers. Some had rusted to the point of evaporation. Others had been completely ravaged by fire. However, the truck parked directly in front of the gate was neither rusty nor burnt to a crisp. It was pure white, and on the back door, someone had painted a giant black cat. Nathan followed the icon's cue and turned right, walking by several more rows of trailers. In some, groups of men had gathered around a radio or a fire. One of them was singing as best he could with his remaining teeth. At the 10th row, he heard a shrill of teenage laughter, and he knew he must be getting close. Then he spotted the final black cat perched atop a faded construction sign. Nathan looked down the row and saw, near the very edge of the lot, a small group of people backlit by flashing lights. As he approached, he saw that the group was surrounding a man-sized hole cut into the fence. At a table, a bored teenage girl was collecting an entrance fee. Nathan paid his $25 and climbed into the rail yard, which was little more than a collection of discarded boxcars on a section of unused track. Although it was early, a sizable crowd had gathered in the middle of the yard, dancing in front of a rail car filled with speakers and lights. Nathan scanned the crowd, looking for the girl from the bus, but the strobe lights blended all the bodies together. So he walked the periphery, observing the people piled on pallets around the yard. Some were bright-faced teenagers who looked too young to drive. Others were older and slightly more ragged, but none of them were Anna. It was by the stage that Nathan found her, in the front with her back against the boxcar. She was looking down, playing with her phone. He made his way through the sweaty dancers until he got within earshot. When the rhythm slowed and the DJ switched to something a little more mellow, Nathan moved closer to Anna, who'd not looked up since he'd arrived. "Hey, do you know who this is?" he shouted, so loud it made Anna jump. She laughed for a moment, amused by her own reaction, then answered, "Yeah, he calls himself Smoke and Mirrors. He's my brother." Brother, Nathan thought, his confidence increasing, his scowl becoming slightly less pronounced. "How'd he find this place? It's a great spot for a show." "It's been a venue for a while," Anna explained, gesturing to the boxcar, which was plastered with posters from old shows. "So we just had to make a deal with the guys who run the place." "Like the owners?" Nathan asked, looking for some sort of office or sign. "This place looks abandoned to me." Anna smiled and adopted a condescending tone. "No, not the owners, the residents," she explained, pointing to a group of punks shooting off Roman candles a few hundred feet behind them. "They don't like my brother too much, but as long as we bring them free beer, they usually behave." As if to signify that tonight would not be one of those nights, the Crusties lit off a row of noisy rockets and cheered as they lit up the sky. "They are such assholes," she said, mostly to herself. Anna turned her attention back to her brother, but Nathan kept his eyes trained on the developments unfolding behind them. The drunk punks had graduated to larger rockets, and Nathan suspected the situation would end poorly. A few bangs and booms later, Nathan watched as the group's leader pulled something new from his dirty black bag. His friends got quiet and started to snicker. Then Nathan saw a spark. He heard the distinct sound of a fuse being lit and saw something launch into the air. Nathan did not know what to expect, and he wasn't taking any chances. He hit the deck, bringing Anna down with him. From the back of the crowd, he heard the punk shout, "Hey, Jesse, I got your smoke right here." Then there was a riot of laughter. Nathan didn't hear anything explode. He stood up and offered Anna his hand, who pushed herself up on her own. He looked at the stage, which was covered in a thin green fog. The music continued to play as if nothing had happened. "Sorry," Nathan said, brushing himself off. Military reflexes. Anna looked at Nathan and cocked her head to the side, as if she were listening to something. Then she smiled, a mischievous light dancing in her pale blue eyes. "You ripped my sweatshirt," she scolded him, pointing to the pocket now flapping lifelessly from the front of her hoodie. "But I appreciate the effort." She started to say something more, but then stopped, her eyes looking past him all of a sudden. "Jesse," she shouted, waving her hand. "Over here." Nathan turned to see a boy, roughly 14 years old, walking towards them. He had headphones around his neck. "I told Ross to take over early. Let's get out of here," he barked. "Hey, can't you see I'm talking here?" she snapped back. "Let's go, or I'm stabbing Johnny in the head," Jesse demanded. "He's such a douchebag!" he shouted, clearly intending for Johnny to hear. Okay, get in the car," Anna replied. "I'll be there in 1 minute. I swear." Jesse looked at Nathan for the first time and gave him the once-over. Then he said, "G.I. Joe's for pussies," and walked away. "That kid needs some re-education," Nathan said, playing off that he'd just been dissed by a tween. "He needs to study the classics." He looked at Anna, hoping for a laugh. Instead, she pulled a business card out of her overstuffed wallet and handed it to him. Nathan tried to read it, but found that it was written in Polish. "What's this?" he asked. "It's my business card," she said. "See, there's my name, Anna Zielinski. You should call sometimes. I can set you up with an appointment." "What kind of appointment?" he asked, but Anna was already walking away. "Just call!" she yelled back, throwing her hands into the air. In a moment, she was in her car. Then she was gone. Nathan looked around and realized that the rail yard had suddenly gotten a lot more packed and a lot more wasted. With Anna gone, he could think of nothing he would rather do than go home. So Nathan headed back through the trailer graveyard onto the wooded path and into the street. Most of the lights were out, but as he made his way through the darkness, you could see the white of his smile reflecting in the light of the full moon. Thank you.